Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second session of AICT ISC sponsored 6 days online induction or refresher program on business intelligence and big data analytics from 9th to 15th December 2021. I would like to introduce Dr. S. Kalemagal Madam Garu. She received a PhD degree in CSC from Anna University in the year 2010. Currently, she is working as a professor in Department of CSC in SV College of Engineering, Tirupati. So her research areas of interest are cognitive pedagogy in education technology, MOOCs and online learning strategies, IoT in learning care, IoT in healthcare and agriculture, interdisciplinary projects. She has published several research articles in leading journals with 67 citations, H index of 5, I index of 2. So Madam has conducted and attended several workshops and seminars, and she also published several papers through national and international journals. So Dr. S. Kalemagal Madam guided three PhD students under her supervision. So she worked as a Dean and R&D in Vagdevi College of Engineering, Warangal, Dean R&D Principal in Khammam Institute of Technology and Sciences, so Dean Academics in St. Martin's Engineering College, Hyderabad, and head for Microsoft Innovation Center and successfully handled many positions. So she is IEEE, she is a member of ACM Computer Society, IEEE Education Society, IEEE CS Society, life member of IST. So she has sponsored two projects and one patent, and she is an editorial member in the Computer Science and Board of the California State University and a reviewer of the IEEE Computer Special Issue on Learning Technologies 2015 and reviewer for OLC Innovate 2018 and OLC Innovate 2019 California. So Dr. S. Kalemagal, Madam, she is a technical editor for Information Technology Journal, Research Journal of Information Technology, Journal of Software Engineering, Journal of Artificial Intelligence, and Singapore Journal of Scientific Research. And she is editor member of Advances in Science, Technology, and Engineering Journal. And she is having a good academic achievements like she is an she established a Microsoft Innovation Center in B.B. Raju Institute of Technology, and there she received a Best MIC award in March 2013 and coordinated 140 students to attend the Windows 8 Appfest in Bangalore in September 2012. And she is a key speaker at MIC Summit in Bangalore in March 2013. So she established a CSA student chapter in Jaya Engineering College and established an ACM Women's chapter in St. Martin's Engineering College. And she has submitted a research proposal titled Sisuraction to the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, the Government of India, and submitted research proposal titled Constructing a Cognitive Pedagogical Framework for Compiler Design Classroom Instruction for the Computer Science and Engineering Curriculum in Indian Universities. So submitted a proposal for DST and FIST funding. So it is only a small brief introduction of Dr. S. Kalemagal Madam Garu. So I would like to convey these things to all the participants and handing over this session to the Dr. S. Kalemagal Madam. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, all of you. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, so can you tell me if you can all hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I can't hear you. So, good afternoon, all of you. I hope I'm audible. Can you all just message me or type and tell me if you can all hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right. So we'll just go ahead with the presentation. So, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Kalai Madhal and I'll be presenting to you machine learning using Python. So, before we even start the FTP, I would like to tell a few things. This is not going to cover the theory part of machine learning, and we are not going to discuss about the algorithms. Rather, what we are going to do is discuss about how we can implement machine learning using Python. So, there are 6 parts to this presentation. The first part is first we'll be covering some of the fundamentals, and part 2 will be the building blocks of machine learning. Part 3 will be how data visualization can be done, and part 4 we will be covering some of the regression algorithms, and part 5 we will be covering some of the classification algorithms. So coming to part 1, which is the fundamentals. So I'm just going to run through this because you've been having this session for 3 days, and I'm sure many people would have covered this. So there are many definitions for machine learning, but the definition I generally go with is the definition of Tom Mitchell, which has 3 parameters: experience E, task T, and performance measure P. So machine learning is basically how a machine improves with experience E at its performance at carrying out a task T, which is measured by using a performance measurement T. So for example, if you have an email spam filter, so if the input is a mail, the task T is classifying whether the mail is spam or it is not spam. Your experience is the actual process of classifying the mail, and the performance measure is how many mails you have accurately classified as spam. Another example is playing checkers. So again, a task T is making the correct move on the checkerboard, and experience is the experience of making correct moves, and performance measure is the number of correct moves made to win a game. And another example is predicting movie box office hit. And again, the task here is given a given movie to predict whether it's going to be a box office hit or not. That's the task. Performance measure is how many movies we have correctly predicted, and experience is the actual experience of prediction. So we all already know that there are 3 different types of machine learning: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So supervised learning is learning with the output already known. So if you already have the label outputs, then it is supervised learning. You have some idea of the data, and you also have an idea about what kind of output is required. Unsupervised learning is you have no idea at all about what is required. You're given the data and you're supposed to find out patterns in the data. And reinforcement learning is learning from mistakes. So you train your algorithm. Every time you make mistakes, you go back and you retrain the algorithm, and that is reinforcement learning. So supervised learning is of 2 kinds: regression and classification. Unsupervised learning is of 2 kinds: clustering and association analysis. And examples of reinforcement learning are your robotics, smart cars, gaming. So these are areas where we make use of reinforcement learning. So in this presentation, I'm going to concentrate only on supervised learning. So let's talk about supervised learning. So a little bit of theory. So I already told you that supervised learning is of 2 kinds. You can either have regression algorithms or you can have classification algorithms. So how we basically look at it is the output of a regression algorithm is always a numeric variable, either a discrete numeric variable or a continuous numeric variable. And the output of a classification variable is algorithm is always a categorical variable. So numeric variables means the output is in numbers. Classification means categorical means the output is in words or statements. So examples of regression algorithms is, so you're given a set of features and you want to predict the age of a person, or you're given the features about and you want to predict the stock price of the market the next day, and you're given some features regarding a house and you want to predict the price of a house. So all these algorithms, the output is a number. See, in the case of the age of a person, whether he's 45 or 55 or 67, regarding the stock price value, and regarding the house price value. And also another example, predicting number of copies of music album will be sold the next month. Now, when we go for classification algorithm, so you're given a number of features and you want to say, find out the gender of a person. So gender can either be male or female. Gender can either be male or female, which is categorical. Similarly, predicting nationality of a person. Again, it can either be Indian, Malaysian, Singaporean. Again, you have a word value. Predicting weather conditions, whether it is hot, humid, rainy, sunny, and predicting customer churn. So customer churn is a classic machine learning problem which is generally used by mobile companies. Customer churn is to find out whether a customer is going to continue using the services of a company or not. If a customer leaves the company, then we say that the customer has churned, otherwise we say he has not. So these are examples for regression and classification. And this is just for my students, so we can just cross that. So what are the algorithms we are going to cover today? So we are going to see classic linear regression, stochastic gradient, ridge, lasso, polynomial regression, and robust regression. And the classification algorithms we are going to see are logistic regression, k-nearest neighbors, decision trees, support vector machines, ensemble models, bagging and boosting. So support vector machines, I've actually kept it at the last. I'll be showing you how all these can be implemented using Python. So this is the fundamentals. And now before we go to the basic building blocks, let's have a look at what are the general steps which are followed in machine learning. So as you all know, we generally divide the life of a machine learning project into three parts. So one is data preparation, second is model building, and third is deployment. So if you look at data preparation, collection of the data, that is correcting the data from a correct source and the correct data. So we all know a machine learning algorithm is as good as the data we have, and then reading the data from the source. So here I've mentioned CSV files because I'm going to show you the code for CSV files alone. But generally we can read data from Twitter, from Facebook, we can take it from the internet, we can take it from any database for that matter, we can collect it from open source. And for each kind of reading, we have the syntax available in Python. And then looking at the data and trying to clean and fill up the missing data, data encoding and feature scaling, which I'll be showing you later. And then we build the model, we train the model, we find the accuracy of the model, and we deploy the model. So before I go on to the building blocks, so what I'm going to just cover before I go to the actual implementation is number one, how do you read the data? Syntax for reading the data. Number two, so generally for any machine learning algorithm, it is not wise to have the values in categorical. We always have to convert the categorical values to numeric values. For example, if I have four types of activity, let me say standing, walking, and sleeping, I cannot perform operations on the data value as it is like that. I have to convert those into numeric. So generally what I do is, if I have three kinds of activities, let me say standing, walking, and sleeping. Standing is assigned 0, walking is assigned 1, and sleeping is assigned 2. Feature scaling is, again, when we are talking about data and huge data, data generally is in a very wide range. So we can't be carrying out mathematical operations on data which is 45,000 or 50,000. So it is required that we need to scale the data down. So, so that is the second important thing. One is reading the data, second is encoding the data, and third is how do we scale the data down. Okay. And another fourth thing we are going to see is how do we find the accuracy of the data. So if you see this, reading, encoding, feature scaling, and how do we find accuracy. So there are certain accuracy metrics which are already available, and I'm sure most of you are already aware of it. So we have accuracy metrics for regression, and we have accuracy metrics for classification, and I will be telling you how we can implement those. So these are the things we'll be covering in the next slides. So the building blocks. So as I already told you, what are the libraries we are going to use? So machine learning algorithms can be implemented using MATLAB, can be implemented using Octave, GNU Octave. You can also use R. You can also use Python. But I have worked with all of these, and I'm very comfortable with Python. I find Python is very easy, very efficient, and everything is inbuilt and easy for machine learning using Python. So this entire presentation is how we are going to carry out the implementation using Python. So there are certain libraries which are required. So pandas is required, NumPy is required, and pandas is required for the data frame. NumPy is required for the numeric operations. Matplotlib is required for the data visualization, and Seaborn is a wonderful color palette and visualization module which is available in Python, which can be used for data visualization. So we are not going to use Keras and Tensor because Keras and Tensor is involved with neural networks and deep learning. So there is a difference between machine learning and deep learning. If we go for neural networks, then we are talking about deep learning, which I'm not covering in this session. So next, so how do you generally read the data? So generally what we do is we have this function called read underscore CSV, if you can see this here, okay, and you have to give the path of the file. So there are a number of parameters available. You can give separator parameters, sub is equal to none. You can also say that column is equal to 0, but I'm not talking about all that. I'm keeping this presentation simple and minimum as possible. So this is for people who have not yet coded, to make them develop an interest for coding and machine learning, and to just give them the basics. So if you see, data is a variable to which you are assigning this entire. So this creates a data frame, and whatever you have in this housing.csv file will be ran to data. So this dot head is a function which is available, which will show you or display the top 5 columns in your data set. So I will be showing you the implementation, and at that time you will be able to understand that better. So now, examples of how data basically looks like. So generally your data is stored in an Excel file. If you're using SQL, it's stored in a database. But since we are talking about CSV files, I'm going to give you examples of CSV files. So if you look at this, this is the example of a data for a housing data set. And this is an example for a data for a classification data set. So if you see, it will have rows and columns, okay? And every column is an input feature. So for a machine learning algorithm, you give in a number of input features to get an output feature. So if your output feature is numeric, it is regression. If your output feature is categorical, it is classification. So in this case, if you see, this is x of 1, x of 2, x of 3, x of 4, x of 5, and all this will be stored in what is called as a x vector matrix vector, okay? And this is the output, which is the median of the housing price. And here you see you have 4 features: sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and the output which is expected is the species. What kind of species of flower we have? Iris. It's actually an iris data classification. So this is how your data set looks. Now, if you look at the previous slide, so if you look at the previous slide, this data dot head. So what generally the output happens is, if you take this right hand side of data, this top 5 will be printed, and if you take this top 5 print will be printed. So you have a number of functions available in Python which helps you to study the data before you can go and do the basic operations. And some of the functions which are available are data.info, data.shape. So data.info will tell you the number of columns and the data type of each column which is present. Data.shape will give you the number of rows into columns. Data.shape of 0 will give you the number of rows. Data.shape of 1 will give you the number of columns. You always have to remember that in Python, 0 always, when we use pandas, 0 always stands for the rows and 1 always stands for the columns. And then you have data.describe, which says the number of, which gives you the measures of tendency. So I will be showing you all this in the output files. So describe will generally calculate your mean, your median, your 25% quartile, your 50% quartile, your 75% quartile. It will give you the count of the value of each column, and it will also tell what is the minimum value in each column and the maximum value. So that is what data.describe does. And then you have data.dtypes.value. So you will have to see, whenever you use this dtypes, it refers to the data types of the columns which belongs to that particular data frame. So when I say values underscore counts, it will give the unique count of the column values of that particular data frame. So these are some of the basic data functions. So some of you who have not used to this might be wondering why this is important. See, it is very important because the algorithm is only as good as the data. It is very important for any machine learning specialist to study the data first. Without studying the data, there is no point in continuing with the algorithm implementation. So that is regarding the data. So as I already told you, we need to do feature scaling. So how do we do feature scaling? So there are 2 ways we can do feature scaling. We actually have a number of scaling functions available. You have frequency encoding, you have, but what I'm going to talk, I'm sorry, we have, you can use normalization, you can use, there are a number of ways in which you can do that. but I'm going to talk about only two things here. One is min max and the second is standard scalar. So min max is you have a formula where each value is subtracted from the maximum and divided by the minimum value, and this is how you can implement it using Python. So if you see the code from NumPy, you are importing A as array, and this is important, sklearn.preprocessing. So sklearn.preprocessing has a number of data preprocessing functions available. Import min max scalar, okay, and you're defining your data. So these are the values you're defining in your data. Print data will print your data array as it is, and all you need to do is you have to declare an object which belongs to this scalar function. So I say scalar is equal to min max scalar, and I say scaled is equal to scalar dot fit underscore transform. So fit underscore transform is standard. You will be finding lot of fits and lot of predicts in the code, and this data fit underscore transform for this data. So fit underscore transform is the function which is used to fit. And when you say print scale, you get the min max value here. So these values 100, 8, 50 have been converted, or they have been scaled, or they have been normalized to this output value. Another feature scaling which is available is we have what is called as the standard scaling. And if you see, it's so simple. Python is so simple. It's the same thing. The only thing is, instead of importing min max, you are importing standard scalar. That's it. And again, you have scalar is equal to standard scalar function. And again, you say scale is equal to scalar dot fit underscore transform of data. That's it. You just need to call the appropriate scaling function. And this is a normalization. This data gets normalized to this. So depending on your data and your data set, you can use whatever scaling function which you think is appropriate. So this is for the feature scaling. So next I told you, you need to convert categorical values. So again, you have a number of encoding types available, but I'm going to discuss only about label encoding and one-hot encoding. So for example, if you take this data set, so you have country, age and salary, and I have a categorical value here. I have India, US, Japan, okay? So I want to convert this into labels. So there are two ways I can do it. So you have frequency encoding also. I'm not talking about it here. Yeah. So if you see again, for encoding also, you make use of the sklearn import preprocessing. Okay. And you just say from sklearn import preprocessing, and you define an object label underscore encoder and preprocessing dot label encoder. So this is the function which is used for label encoding. And then what you have to do is you say data of country, which means that you are calling this column name here. Data is the name of this data frame, and you say label underscore encode dot. Again, you use fit underscore transform. So it's very easy once you get the hang of it. And what do you want? What do you want to transform? You want to transform this country column, which belongs to this data frame. So automatically, what happens is you have, if you look at the previous slide, you see you have three countries, India, US and Japan, and you find that it has assigned a value of 2 to India and 1 and 0 to US and Japan. Right? So if you see, it has encoded like this. So 0 has been assigned to India because it's the first value, and you have 1 and you have 2 which has been assigned. Now the difference between this and hot encoding is, in hot encoding what happens is, here you are assigned and the values are assigned. You will have extra columns according to the values. So I'll just show you how it is done. So you see, you have three countries, right? India, US, Japan. So you see countries 0, one column for India, one column for US, and one column for Japan. So if this is India, you get a 1, otherwise you get a 0. similarly it follows. So that's the difference between, and you always have to drop the first column. So if you look at the code for hotstar encoding, you'll see again from sklearn.preprocessing import one hot encoder, and again you create an object. So there you set label encoder, here you say one hot encoder, that's it. And you say x underscore, because what you're doing is you're taking that data. So fit transform data dot country, and you have to reshape this 1D country array to a 2D. So you find that you have only 1D, India, US, and Japan. That's a one dimensional array. But when you convert it, you get 3 extra columns, which is a 2D array. So you have to reshape it. This is how you reshape it: -1, comma 1, 2 array. And then you will have to feed it back to the original data frame. So I'm creating another df1 hot here, a new array here, and I'm calling this data frame, and I'm adding this to df1 hot, and from that I'm assigning it to df, I'm concatenating it here, and I'm dropping the country label, because what happens is you'll get country also, and country 012 which country has to be dropped, and then you can print and you will get this. So this is how one hot encoding is done. So another thing which we need to do whenever we run the data. So what we've basically covered is how we can read the data, how we can understand the data, how do we do encoding, how do we do scaling, and now we are going to see splitting. So generally, mostly in supervision algorithms, we make use of a technique which is called a holdout. So what holdout basically is this: whatever input data we have, we split it into training data and testing data. So either we can take the entire data and keep 70% as training and 30% as testing, or 80% as training and 20% as testing. So the reason why we make use of this is because we already know the values and we want to test it or test new values against values which we already know in order to calculate better accuracy for the models. So generally what we do is to split the data. This is how we split the data. We declare 4 variables and we call train underscore test underscore, which is the splitting function. Okay. And we can give x and y values, and test underscore size 0.3 states that 30% is going to be, 70% is training and 30% is test, and random underscore state, which means that you always get split in the same thing. So you can use 2, 42, 14, any value which you want. Now, the problem with normal splitting of data is if you have smaller data values. For example, let me say in the previous example, for 50 values, let me say only 2 countries belong to India and the rest belongs to US and Japan. So when we split 70-30, there is no equal distribution of the output data. Yeah, so I'm sorry, there was some network issue because of a power cut. Am I audible now? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, now it's okay.
I mean, can't hear them.
One second.
Just please type and tell me if you can hear me because I think we have muted the participants' reply.
Yeah,
Can you all?
it's okay, ma'am. It's audible now.
I'm not able to hear them.
Okay, sir. I'll check the control change.
Um, okay, that's good. Is it audible now?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So before we even continue, because I've been talking for so long and I'm not able to hear you people. How's the session going? Do you understand what I'm trying to convey? Please type messages. Please type it so that I can,
It's
because I
okay,
can't
ma'am.
hear you actually.
It's okay, ma'am.
ఎవరు అంకుల్ ఎక్కడున్నారు వచ్చాను లోకల్కి వచ్చేసారా
Okay. So, shall we continue in the same way? I mean, are you able to understand?
ఎక్కడ ఎక్కడ సెకండ్ దాంట్లో ఉన్నారా
Yes. So, a bit of feedback will be useful before I go on to the next. Okay. So, right. So, carrying on from categorical encoding. This is the label encoding which I've already told you all. And we were talking about one hot star encoding or one hot encoder. Right. And I was telling you about splitting, yeah. So in order to avoid that, so assuming you have a data set, so what we do is we take the entire data set, let us say we have 500 values, we divide it into homogeneous groups, and from each homogeneous group, we take a random sample. So taking the previous example, so we have three outputs, India, USA, and Japan. So we divide it into three basically different output groups, and we take a random sample from each group and split it in that way. So that is called as stratified splitting. We take it from sklearn.model, and number of splits is 1, test size again 0.3, which means that 30% in each thing, and random underscore state is equal to 42. So we will be seeing this in the coding files when I show you. Stratified splitting again is not complete because it leads to data with high variance, and in order to avoid that, we also have what is called as cross validation. So the most famous cross validation use is k-cross validation, where we divide the entire data set into k folds, and one data set is taken in that k folds. One fold is taken as the test set, and the other folds are taken as the training data. And iteratively, every set will be considered as a test set, and we are going to train for k times. So that is cross validation or k validation. So this is how we split the data. So coming back to accuracy matrix, this is very important because we will be covering it in the code later. So if you consider regression, these are the accuracy metrics which are considered: mean absolute error, mean squared error, root mean squared error, and R2 error. So these right. So if you take the code, this is the so we had a network problem again. And I would like to know if I'm still connected. Right. Yeah. So can you all hear me? Because again the power went off and the network got disconnected. Kindly respond, so that I can continue. Okay, fine. So we'll continue. So, right. So if you have a look at this, so these are the four things: mean absolute error, mean square error, root mean squared error, and R2 error. Okay. So the error which we generally use is your R2 error. We'll be seeing that in the code also. So for that, all these metrics are already available and inbuilt in Python. So we just need to import it from sklearn. So from sklearn, import metrics, and all we need to do is metrics dot mean underscore absolute underscore error, mean underscore score. So these are all functions which are already available. You just need to call the functions and you need to pass in which is your true value and which is the predicted value. So these are the metrics which are used for regression. So for classification, we use the confusion metrics, precision, recall. So for example, so this is what a confusion matrix basically is. So for an example, I've taken the handwritten recognition set, which is a classic set which is used in machine learning. So there are four things: true negative, true positive, and false negative. So for example, let us assume, so assuming you want to predict if India has won the IPL. So you want to make a prediction on that. So if you have predicted that India is going to win and the team really wins, then it is true positive TP. Okay. Now, if you have predicted that India is going to win, but we have lost, then it is false positive FP. If we have predicted that India is going to lose, but India wins, then it is true negative Tn. And if we predict that India is going to lose and we also lose, then it is false negative, which is Fn. So in this handwritten definition set, assuming you want to predict a 5, so you're given a digit. If you have predicted it as 5 and the number is also 5, it is true positive. If you have predicted it as 5, but your number is not 5, so in this case it's a 6, it's false positive. If you have predicted it's a, you have not predicted it's a 5, but actually it is a 5, then it is false negative. And you have not predicted a 5 and it is not even a 5, it is true negative. So for this also, you have a function which is called as the confusion underscore matrix, which you can directly call using Python. And you have something which is called as the precision score, recall, and F1. So the formula for all this is based on this. So if you look, this table actually classically shows that. So TP, FP, Fn, and Tn. So precision is TP plus FP plus Fn. Precision is an accuracy measure which tells you how correctly you are going to predict a class which interests you. Okay. Accuracy is a prediction measure which tells you how accurate your predictions are. Recall is a prediction measure which tells how accurate your true positive predictions are. And you have sensitivity and specificity. So if you take F2 score, it is a harmonial balance between precision and your recall. So you also have what are called as ROC curves, but I'm not covering it here. So now we talk about data visualization. So data visualization is how you can visualize the data. You have a number of ways you can do it. You have a number of plots in which you can do it. But we are going to discuss about the histogram, the scatter plot, the pair plot, and your heat map or your correlation maps. So if you take a histogram is used to show the visualization of your numeric values and your numeric values and the frequency in which the numeric values occur. So this is a very simple code to plot a histogram. If you want to plot a histogram, you need to use this function from matplotlib import pyplot as plt. And so I'm taking numpy, I'm declaring an array, and this is the standard code for creating a histogram. So you just need to change the values, that's it. Figure size gives the dimensions of your figure, bins give you the size of your bins, and plot.show is going to show the histogram which you are plotting. Another very frequently used data visualization in machine learning are your scatter plots. So scatter plots are widely used, and scatter plots basically shows the bivariate relationships between two variables, or it shows a pairwise relationship between variables. This is how a scatter plot looks like. And this is a very simple scatter plot. So these are the x values, these are the y values, and you just say plt.scatter x comma y plt.show, and your scatter plot is visible. Another thing which is very often used are pair plots. So this is something which is available in Seaborn, and it is a very, very useful data visualization technique which shows the pairwise relationship between all the x values with the corresponding y value. So all the x values and all the y values, you get the pair plot represented. This is how a pair plot generally looks like. So all you need to do is you import Seaborn as SNS, and from Seaborn you have a function called load underscore dataset. The name of the dataset here is tips, which is going to be stored in this data frame df, and then you say seaborn.pairplot and dfu is equal to, this is the column which you want to be highlighted, whether it's male or female, and plt.show is going to plot your Seaborn, your pair plot. Another very important thing is heat maps. Heat maps are an excellent way of seeing correlation. So this is another important thing, correlation and covariance between variables. So this is how a heat map basically looks like. So you have a number of x values, and all your x values are going to be plotted, and the brighter the color, the greater the correlation, the lower the color, the lesser the correlation. As you all know, correlation is between -1 to +1. So if you see, these darkest colors show a correlation of 1, and these lighter colors show a correlation of 0.0. So it's a very easy way. So for example, you see, if you take price and if you take reviews, so you see the correlation is 0.0017. But if you take user rating and year, so user rating and year has a very good coefficient of 0.24, and reviews and year has a very good coefficient of 0.26. So how you do it is you import Seaborn. So you're taking your CSV file This is a function which is used to create a heat map, .corr. Now, if you don't plot it, how it will be available is just as a simple matrix. You will just get a matrix. You will get user rating, you will get this side, and you'll get the values. That's it. If you want a heat map like this with color coding, you have to call sb.heatmap, and you have to pass this matrix data.core as a parameter to heat map. You have to give the palette you want, and you have to say annotate is equal to true. And this will give you this heat map with this coloration. And then if you say mp.show, you're automatically going to get your heat map. So these are the 4 kinds of data visualizations available. So now that you know how to code for encoding, how to read the data, how to do the data visualization, so now we will go straight to the algorithms. So the first program I'm going to show you is actually a combination of all the regressions in one file and comparing the prediction in one file. So the regression algorithms which we are going to cover in that are basically, so first we'll be talking about linear regression. So linear regression is the simplest regression available, and you all know that the hypothesis is a straight line. The closer the data points are to the line, it means your algorithm is much more correct. The further it is, it means your algorithm is not correct. And this is the equation which is important. So b0 plus b1 into x1 plus b2 till. So here x1 till x of n stands for your input features. b0, b1, b2 are the coefficients. And what your algorithm basically calculates is the correct coefficients which will give you a straight line. So for linear regression, you can plot from sklearn.linear model import linear regression. So this is already available in Python, and all you need to do is you need to create an object and you call the linear regression function and normalize it, and you have to say lin underscore rich dot fit again. You give your x underscore strain, y underscore train data, and you can take it and store it in a data frame. So what I suggest is don't go into much of this, just have an idea about where to import. I will be showing you the coding file. So another type of regression we are going to cover is robust regression. So you have to remember there are numerous machine learning algorithms available and numerous alternate available, because the same algorithm doesn't work for all kinds of data. If your data has a lot of outliers are data which has crossed the 75% quartile, okay? Then we need to go for something as an alternative. So the regression method we go as an alternative for is robust regression. So robust regression, we need to import ransack regressor. So previously you imported linear regression, and here you import ransack regressor, and you give the base estimator model. So what this base underscore estimator parameter is, it comes in most of your sklearn functions, which means from which base you're starting from. So this regression model is a modification of your linear regression model, and so you say base underscore estimator is equal to linear regression and the number of trials you're going to run. So the another regression we are going to cover is, I'm going to go through this fast so that we can go to the code, is ridge regression, which is called in machine learning terminology as L2 regression, okay? And for that we import ridge function, right? And if you go, we also have lasso regression, and then we have elastic net regression. So the difference is the penalty which you add. See, the problem with linear regression is sometimes it does not cover data with high variance. So if you want data with high variance to be covered, we need to go for a modification. So the difference between ridge is called as L2, lasso is called as L1. The same L2 and L1 can be implemented for logistic regression also. So how we implement it is, if you talk about L2, it is the square of the absolute coefficients. If we talk about L1, it is the magnitude of the absolute coefficient. So the difference is just in the formula. The difference is that lasso considers zero values also, which regression will not consider zero values also. But the problem is, if you go for ridge regression, you have higher bias. If you go for lasso, you have higher variance. So you generally want to go for an optimum type of algorithm where you have low bias and low variance. So for that, you try a harmonized version of both ridge and lasso. And that is why we have the elastic net penalty here, which is a combination of L1 and L2. Right. So now, other than this, assuming your variables do not have a linear, see, because in linear regression, the values have to be linear. In case the values are non-linear, then you need to go for polynomial regression. So polynomial regression is you use polynomial forms of the attributes, and that is called as polynomial regression. So for that you import polynomial features. So what we'll do now is, and other than that you also have something which is called a stochastic gradient. So what stochastic gradient basically does is, it develops the next point or the next data set. So a very classical illusion is, let us assume you're a blind person and you're trying to climb down a slope, and you need to see which data set to take next to go the best position to climb down the slope. So what you're doing is you're taking a data set and you want to find which is the next best data set in order to calculate an optimum coefficient or an optimum loss function. So you have batch gradient and stochastic gradient. Stochastic gradient is a smooth convex loss function, and for that we need to import the SGD regressor. So the purpose of this is to tell you that for every regression algorithm, you already have the function available in Python. So now how do I combine all of this in order to get what I want? So I will just show you the program.
Stop your sharing.
Shall I share again?
Please.
Okay. So now I am going to share my the actual program. Yeah. So I think it's visible. So let me tell you how we actually implemented. So we actually implemented using Jupyter. Now there are different ways in which you can do this. That covers that needs really, I think you need more classes for all that. So I'm not going to talk to you about how you're going to install Jupyter and all that. But this program has been implemented using Jupyter. And those of you who are interested, you can try to take it down. The data set I'm basically using is a data set called as USA_housing. You can use any data set you want, as long as your output has to be numeric. You can use any data set you want to try this out. So the first thing is, as usual, you're going to import your file. So I've imported Pandas PD and NumPy. These are all standard things which are always used. And I'm importing matplotlib.py.plot as PLT, and I'm importing cpod as SNS. Now then what I do next is I'm reading the data. So I'm giving the name for a data frame. Your data is always going to be stored in a data frame. A data frame is a matrix which has rows and columns, and every data frame has to be given a name. So generally when we code, we go for data or we go for DF, but here I have done USA_housing_data and PD dot, I'm using the read_CSV file, and I'm giving the path of my file. And then to test whether it is really working, I have given data.head. So what this does is, it will give me the top 5 rows of my data set. So my top 5 rows of my USA_housing data set is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so these are the values. So then what I do next is, I want more information about my data. I want to know the number of columns. So I say data.info. When I say data.info and I run it, I get the number of columns. So here in this housing data set, I have 6 columns, 7 columns: area, income, house, number of rooms, number of bedrooms, population, price, and address. And here it says 5,000, which means that I don't have any non-null values, and here is my data type. So all these are numeric, and this address alone is object, which means that it's a categorical value. So then what I want to do, I want to know the number of rows and columns. So if I say data.shape, it says 5,000 into 7, 5,000 rows into 7 columns. Then when I say dot describe, I get an average description. All this is available on the table for me. So my count, the number of values I have in area, income, the mean of my values in this column, what is the standard deviation, what is the minimum value, what is the 25% value, 50% value, 75% value, and max value. Then what I want to do is I want to see the correlation between the data. So I say sns.pairplot. Pairplot is the function. and I simply pass my data name. So this is the output which I get. So if you see, this is all normal because you're plotting against yourself, and this will immediately show you the relationship between the different data columns pairwise. So now after doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign what I want in X and what I want in Y. So X is my input variables and Y is my output data. So what I want is housing. I only want average income, house age, number of rooms, number of bedrooms, and area population. So if you look on top, I am not considering price and I'm not considering address. Address I'm not considering because I don't want to do encoding here, and address does not have any effect here. And I'm not considering price because price is going to be my Y value. So I'm directly going to take age and area income, house age, number of rooms, number of bedrooms, and population. So how I do it is, I basically say area income, I'm including this in the X. And for my Y, I'm taking U and I'm considering price. So now what I do, as I already told you, we need to split the data. So from sklearn model selection, I am importing this which is used to split the data, train underscore test underscore split. So how I do it is, I give my X column as a parameter, I give my Y column as a parameter, 30% random underscore set. So this is standard for any algorithm which you do. So what this basically does is, the total number of rows is 5,000, but what it does is 3,500 rows, 75% is taken and put as the training data, and the remaining 1,500 is put as the test data. Okay, so this is how your data gets divided. So now I split into training data and test data. So that is done. So now what I'm going to do next is, how do I evaluate the accuracy of my algorithm? So to evaluate the accuracy of my algorithm, I'm creating a function which is called as model underscore evaluation. Okay, where I'm basically going to call this. So as you all know, sklearn.model.selection, from sklearn import metrics already available, and I say metrics.mean underscore absolute error, squared error. This is how I am going to calculate it directly from Python. So now what I basically do is, I am also going to scale it down. I am scaling it using standard scalar and pipeline. So I say pipeline is equal to pipeline of standard scalar, and I say fit underscore transform, which means this data and the training and testing data is going to be standard scaled, and this is the output which I'm going to get. So then what I do is, this is for me because I was trying to see the linear model. So now what I'm going to do is, so you've taken the data, you've analyzed the data, you've scaled the data, you've split the data. So now you can directly implement the algorithm. So I'm going to implement linear regression. I say from sklearn.linear underscore model import linear regression. I'm creating an object lin underscore rig, and I'm calling the function, I'm normalizing the values, and I'm using fit. So this fit function is standard for all the algorithms. So what are you fitting? You're going to fit your training data and your Y training data. So I put X underscore train and Y underscore train. So automatically your coefficients are calculated. So how are your coefficients calculated? So this is the intercept. To know my coefficients, that is my theta 1, theta 2, theta 3 value, or my B1, B2, B3 value, I already have a function which is already available, which is called as lin underscore reg dot coefficient. So lin underscore regression is the object I've created. COEF is the parameter which is already available in Python. I'm saying x dot columns, and I'm saying columns is equal to coefficient name, and I'm assigning this whole thing to a data frame. So what this basically does is, it prints my coefficient for each value in the column. So this is my theta 1 value or B1 value, theta 2 value or B2 value, theta 3 value or B3 value, theta 4 value. So these are my coefficients which have been calculated using linear regression. Right? Now, for this, I'm going to make a prediction model. I'm going to test. So how do I test? I call model evaluation. These are Y underscore test. Y underscore test are my actual values, tested values which are available. Test underscore predict are my predicted values which have been predicted using my X underscore train. So if you see test underscore predict is equal to, this is the object for linear regression. This is my predict function, which is already available in linear regression. So you're passing the predicted values, you're passing the actual values, and you're going to evaluate the model. So automatically your model, your absolute value is created, MSE value is calculated, RMS. So if you see your median, which means that 81% of the model is accurate. If you see this, it crosses, which is not correct. And if you see R2 square value, 91% of your model is accurate. So you can put it in a better way. So what I'm doing is I'm putting it into a data frame called results underscore data frame. So I'm creating a data frame. The first column is linear regression. I'm passing these values, okay? And for linear regression, these are my values, right? So I'm going to carry out the same thing for different kinds of regression, and I'm going to compare the values. So the next type of regression I'm going to try is RANSEQ or robust regression. So instead of linear regression, I'm importing RANSEQ regressor. And as I already told you, I'm creating an object, I'm calling the function. These are the parameters which are required. And again, model.fit, and I'm fitting. And again, you predict. Test underscore predict is equal to model.predict of x underscore test. So once it fits, it will automatically give you your error values for robust regression. And we are adding it to the data frame. So when you add it to the data frame, so I'm creating another data frame and I'm appending it to the original data frame, which finds that these are the values for robust regression. So the same way, if you see, I'm importing for ridge regression. You have a choice of whatever equation you want. Here we are using Cholesky, which is the standard. Okay, alpha is your learning coefficient, which we are setting to 0 or 0.01. And again, so we call the ridge function. We fit the model. Again, we predict the accuracy values and we concatenate it. So again, we try the same thing for lasso regression. And for lasso regression, you calculate alpha value, whether it is these are all standard which is already available, and random selection, random underscore state 42. And again, we are going to calculate, or we are going to fit and predict the model. And these are the error values for lasso regression. And again, for elastic net, which is already available in Python, and again we call it. And so this is how this program basically goes. So for polynomial features, if you see, you have a function, you can state the degree. So if I say degree is equal to 2, everything will be x squared. If I say degree is equal to 3, all the x values will be cubed. So depending on these features, your x values will be converted into the polynomial. So because I'm going for 2D polynomial, I say training data and testing data, I'm fitting it and I'm transforming it. So poly underscore registration dot fit transform. After doing this, I am implementing the linear regression. So the only difference is you're fitting your x values and you're transforming it to polynomial form. And after that, you're applying your linear regression algorithm. So again, you can calculate the values for this. And we are also doing the same thing using a support vector regression and random forest regressor. And finally, what we do is for all the values, these are your accuracy, and we build a chart which shows you the accuracy level. So whichever chart has got, so if you see stochastic gradient descent and polynomial regression, all of them more or less the accuracy levels are the same, which means that for this data set, all regression algorithms have the same kind of input or the same kind of output or the same kind of efficiency. So if we check for, yeah, so this is basically a simple program that implements the different types of regressions and how we can follow it. So the next thing we are going to see, what's the time? 1:15? Okay. Yeah. So next we have classification algorithms. So I'm already running out of time, so I'll just directly tell you how we are going to do it. So I'm sure you all know what is logistic regression. So logistic regression is the opposite of linear regression. We use it for classification. So we have a threshold value of 0.5, and this is a sigmoid function. So if it is greater than 0.5, it means that classification belongs to a group. If it is lesser than 0.5, it means that it does not belong to the particular group. So this is what is basically shown here. So what we are going to do is, I'll go directly to the code because I have only 10 minutes more, and this is just to give you an idea. So k nearest neighbors, and we also have decision trees. So what I'll do is, I'll just go through fast to tell you the basics. Okay. So this is for logistic regression. If you see, the basic things are the same. So here we are using another data set. You don't need to worry about that. So the data set we are using here is something for human activity regression using smartphones. So if you see again, you're checking the value counts. D types dot value counts which say that I have 561. So you have 560 columns here because you say 561 future vector. So when you say 561, it means all 561 are basically float objects, and you have only one value which is a categorical value. So what is a value which is a categorical value? It is the activity field which is a categorical value. So data.activity.value counts, which means we have 1944 laying, 1906 standing, 1777 sitting. So what we need to do is, we have to automatically convert it into numeric values. To convert it into numeric values, we are making use of a label encoder. So I assign an object. So sklearn.preprocessing import label encoder, and I assign an object to the label encoder function. And I am saying that to this activity column, I want to fit and transform data activity. Now after this function, if you run the program, you will see that you have 45215, which means that every activity has been encoded and has been given a label. So let's go to the code. Can't cover all this in one class. Yeah. So if you look at this, we see that we are actually going for a stratified shuffle split. So that's why I've given you this program. In the previous program, we actually made use of a normal test and split. And here we are making use of a stratified shuffle split. So the code is more or less the same, only depends on what you're actually calling. So here we are calling sklearn.model_selection. And we also have the function available, which is stratified shuffle split. The number of splits, what is the percentage in each split, and random underscore state 42. So again, we are going to classify into training data and testing data. And here we mentioned that all the future columns go to training and your activity is going to be testing. So basically what this is going to do is, given all the input, we want to output how we can classify the activity, whether it is standing or what. So that is basically what we are going to do here. So again, we normalize it. So how do you fit the logistic regression model? To fit the logistic regression model, we have to call it from sklearn.linear_model, and we import logistic regression. And in logistic regression also, we can call for L1 and L2. So an important thing you need to remember is, all these algorithms can work either for regression and also for classification. It's only that whether it's better sorted for regression or better suited for classification. So even in logistic regression, you have L2 regression, L1 regression, and elastic net. So to implement LR, this is the standard. To implement L1 regression, this is the code followed. And to implement L2 regression, this is the code. So the only difference is that if you're going to implement L1 logistic regression, you set a penalty of L1. And if you're going to implement L2 logistic regression, you set a penalty of L2. And then what you do is, you fit the algorithm. So this is how you list the coefficients. And these are the coefficient values which are printed for each of the values. and you try to look at it using a plot, and this is the actual classification. So this is a class, so I have set head here, which means that this is a value which is predicted for the first five. So if you see, if you use normal logistic regression, for the zeroth row you get three throughout. So you find whether you predicted using logistic regression or L1 or L2, the same output appears for the first five rows. So which means that there's not much difference between using any of the algorithms. So this is how, in order to take it further, you can implement a confusion matrix. So this is how you implement a confusion matrix. Again, you have a function which is called, so if you see this, sklearn.matrix, import precision underscore recall underscore. So all this is already available in Python. You just need to call it, and you can calculate your precision, recall, F-score, accuracy values. Similarly, you can also build a confusion matrix. So this is the basics for logistic regression. Now, if you're going to use a decision tree, I don't know how many of you are aware what a decision tree is, but it's also a type of classification. So here I'm using another data type, and I'm using stratified shuffle split here, and I'm importing a decision tree classifier. So very simple, you just say from sklearn.tree import decision tree classifier, then you say dt is equal to, you call the function directly, and you say dt dot, and your decision tree is built with 171 nodes and a depth of 22. And you can also visualize the decision tree if you look down. So this is how your decision tree looks like, and you can visualize the decision tree if you use GraphViz. So all this has to be pip installed. Okay. So this is what the basics is. So what I've basically covered here is, because my session is over. So what I've basically covered here is the idea of the session. I actually prepared a lot, but we had an internet problem, and then there was a power cut in the middle and all that. So what the basic idea of this session is to make people interested in coding machine learning, because I've been teaching machine learning, and I find that many of us are more, we are very comfortable teaching the theory, and theory is something which students don't really relate to. Then we go and give those mathematical functions, they really don't understand what we are trying to tell them. So it's very easy to code machine learning. It's difficult to interpret, because all this data visualization, it's very easy to create the plots. But studying the plot and trying to make the data inferences requires a lot of experience. The purpose of the session is to give you all a basic idea on how we can implement using Python, and what are the basic machine learning algorithms, and how easy it is to code if we get a interest in it. So I'm winding up my session with this. If you all have any doubts, please do ask me. So I will stop my presentation. Yeah. So I have stopped my presentation now. Right. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me. If there are any doubts. So thank you all for being very patient. Yeah. So I don't know how much has been covered and how much you have all understood. Most of this needs at least one class by itself. Like linear regression implementation by itself needs an entire class. So if you have any doubts, if you want any tips, or if you want any access to the sources, please do ask me. I can't hear you all, so it would be good if you could message me so that I can read your messages and I can reply accordingly. Yeah, thank you.
Madam, participants, any queries is there? Participants? Okay. Madam, thank you, madam. Wonderful session of machine learning using the Python. You are explaining the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals in the machine learning and building? Madam, thanking you, madam. Thanking you, madam, for explaining the machine learning using the Python. Indeed, we explain the fundamentals of machine learning, building the blocks, data visualization, and regression algorithms, classification algorithms in detail, madam. In the span of 1.5 hours, we detail explained about the machine learning algorithms and all the things. Thanking you, madam, on behalf of the management of SVP and head of the department and myself. Thank you, madam, for giving the session, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dilip.
Next session.
Yeah, so your next session will be starting in 5 minutes.